You say you want real connection, but every time it requires emotional vulnerability or exposure, you run for the hills. Yeah, let that sit for a second. Because connection doesn't die from lack of love, it dies from lack of honesty. Welcome back to Unzipped Lips. Again, I'm your hostess, Mary Freshwater, and we are unzipping some harsh truths and not many are willing to talk about, but it needs to be said. And today we're talking about emotional vulnerability. And I am going to dive in with one thing that I haven't heard many talk about, and I am very passionate about talking about. And that comes with being vulnerable with yourself so you can be vulnerable with others. Because if you can't be vulnerable with yourself, how can you be vulnerable with anybody else? I mean, really think about this for a moment. If you can't love or like yourself and be comfortable with yourself, how are you going to feel safe exposing yourself to someone else? A harsh, harsh truth right there is if you don't like yourself, you're not going to be vulnerable with anybody because you don't want to show them parts of you you don't even like. I love how people always say the quote, you just need to love yourself. No, I'm sorry. Let's rewind this for a moment. If you don't like yourself, you can't love yourself. I'm sorry. Am I the only one confused with that? It comes with awareness and vulnerability with yourself in order for you to be able to see the things that you do not like about yourself. Once you can see the things you don't like about yourself and change it, guess what? You suddenly start liking yourself. You suddenly start loving yourself. That means now you feel safe enough in your own skin emotionally to be able to be vulnerable with someone else. And this is like so hard because like emotional vulnerability isn't what we consider the Instagram version. I mean, that's just oversharing, trauma dumping, crying on command. I'm sorry, but that is all emotional manipulation. That is not emotional vulnerability. Emotional vulnerability is telling the truth when it's so much easier to perform. And again, you can't tell that truth unless you know that truth and you're okay with that truth. If you don't like that truth, change who you are until you are comfortable with that truth. Stop saying I'm okay. Say I'm not okay without repackaging it for everyone else's comfort. Be comfortable with the fact that you are in turmoil and it is okay to not be okay. It's something you're working on. That's your truth. Allow yourself to be seen without control of the outcome. Stop controlling what others are going to think. Because I'm sorry, but not everybody is this perfect Instagram, emotional, got it all together person. Dude, I have to go hiking to keep my mind right, or otherwise I'm going to lose my shit. That is the dead honest truth. I have to go sit in rivers where water and I can connect with the earth. If I do not do that, I start to lose my mind. This is my emotional stability, is nature. This is who I am. And I am now comfortable with that. And I want you to get comfortable with who you are, what you are, and love yourself and know yourself so you can feel exposed and be okay with it. Because most people fear vulnerability solely because they're going to get rejected. So it's easier to pretend. They think vulnerability is weak and it's easier and it's stronger just to be strong man. No. We've learned this so much We've learned how to shut down instead of opening up because vulnerability was punished, ignored, weaponized against us. If you've come through an abusive situation, you know what that means. You were hurt because you made that happen. Okay. And I know most of you all have heard probably, "Yeah, my feelings are just too much." Being emotional makes me feel unsafe. These are things you are saying to yourself. If I don't feel, I can't get hurt. No, you're emotionally shut down. I mean, it's survival, it's protection, it's control. Let's be real. We have all had to go through it to survive. We had to go through these phases. We had to protect ourselves in order to stay safe. But guess what? That is now what is keeping you in your own prison. I've said this before. We get stuck and we put ourselves in our own prison and we don't allow ourselves to move forward. And this is one of the biggest things that I can't speak enough about is emotional vulnerability, emotional safety, and you are the only one who can get you out of this. Because you wore this on armor. You put it on. You constructed the armor you're wearing. The armor you're wearing for emotional protection, you constructed to keep you safe. You constructed to get through whatever you needed to go through, but you're the only one who can disassemble it because you're the one who put it together. This is where ownership comes so much in and accountability comes in to healing and mending yourself. And yes, like this horrific act happened to you, but you can figure out what positive things you can come out of this. I mean, okay, there's things with our armor like perfectionism, our humor, our busyness, independence, anger, numbness. All of this is a part of armor. But if you look at it, you have attributes that you can be proud of and keep and move on in a healthy manner. Perfectionism. Okay, you're probably really hyper organized. Where's the positive in this? Don't keep it all. Change it. Move forward. Stop criticizing yourself until you're on a breaking point because it's not perfect. Your humor, self-deprecating. I'm sorry, but there's a point where you are tearing yourself down and then you start to live in that. Okay, you can have humor. You could probably be an amazing stand-up comedian, but where is it an armor and where is it something that you might actually be fun and staying overly busy? Let's be real. Being productive. Someone who's overly busy can tone it back and just be a productive person. Anger. I mean, there's good things and bad things to that, but numbness. I have yet to find a positive because what our armor is doing with all of those is keeping people out, keeping healing out, keeping intimacy out. Emotional intimacy is different than physical, mental, spiritual, sexual. They're all different. And you need emotional intimacy to be able to move yourself forward in this world and to keep healing. You can heal so much on your own, but then relationships with other humans are going to help you move forward more. You only can do so much work on your own because there are triggers you don't know about until you're living a life. You have to get out there and stop wearing the armor that keeps you safe from the pain, but also keeps you guarded from connection and from real heat. There's a difference between being strong and being guarded. Strength is survival. It is what we had to do to get through what we were going through. Vulnerable strength is transformative. It will change your life. It will change who you are. And if you are willing to be vulnerable with yourself first, it will be easier to carry that strength into being vulnerable with others. And when I say that this is a hard step, it really is. Being vulnerable with yourself and admitting things to yourself is just as hard, if not harder, than saying to someone else. Because you have to look in a mirror and you have to see what things are destroying you and what you had to build to get through something. That is hard to look at because you also see the pain. Not going to lie, it's not easy. Being guarded and just saying, I got this and I don't need anyone is so much easier than saying, I am scared of being hurt. I don't know. I need support over here. I'm drowning. Real strength is the ability to stay open even when it would be so much easier to shut down and shut everything out. Trust me, I've been there. I was a workaholic and at the height of my success when I was in one of the most horrific relationships. I was a workaholic. I stayed busy. I kept everyone out because I didn't want people to know what was happening. I didn't want to admit to myself what was happening. And the moment I did, my life changed in so many amazing ways. Vulnerability with myself first helped me be vulnerable with others. And it helped me be vulnerable in relationships because this is where I found I ran the most because I wanted to hide. I didn't want people to see the wounds, the scars, and how deep they went. Once you stop fearing that, once you are able to be vulnerable in love, in friendships, and with your family, the fear of rejection and abandonment and that you're too much start to subside. Because who cares if someone rejects you? Because you're no longer rejecting you and you're going to be okay. That's the height of being emotionally strong is no matter what happens, I'm going to be okay. This world in this life is happening for me, not to me. There is so much in that quote that just gives you strength. You will be just fine because nothing can be worse than what you already survived. And the more you understand that, the less you need to control because you start to crave connection. You stop being silent because honesty starts to give you strength. And you no longer need the distance between you and others. Because intimacy fuels you. You don't lose people by being vulnerable. You lose people because they don't know you. When you're vulnerable, you start to show people who you are. You start to expose yourself and you start to stand there in emotional nakedness. And people resonate with that. People actually start to come to you in a good way. The stronger you become, the more you pull people in because they see something different. And I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and say there's not a risk to being vulnerable because there is. I mean, yeah, there's a risk of getting hurt. Being an emotional does not guarantee safety. Safety is within you. It's your responsibility to feel safe. Their responsibility for you to feel protected. And with that, you can get disappointed because you're putting too much on someone else. There's a risk of being misunderstood with your vulnerability, being rejected. It's okay because being closed off guarantees emotional isolation, disconnected relationships, and repeating the same pattern over and over that you want to break and you want to be different. When you start to think about this, what happens when you finally let yourself be seen is one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself. Because when an unseen person finally feels seen, whew, man, it feels so amazing. I remember when I first was seen, and I was sitting with who I actually call mom and dad. And we were talking about a relationship that was ending in my childhood, and she started crying. And I was like, oh, I'll stop, dude. Too much, too much. And she admitted that they had tried protecting me as a child. And I'm going to cry because the greatest gift she gave to me was in that moment. She told an unseen child that she was seen and that they had tried so hard to protect me and to love me my whole life. And I can't tell you how great of a gift it is to feel seen when you have been so unseen. The greatest gift. And one of the only ways you're going to get there is by being emotionally vulnerable, being vulnerable with others, period. Because once you start to see what it feels like to be seen, whew, things change. You get healthier connections. You start to choose them. You recognize what they are. You start speaking instead of suppressing. And you can start healing, feeling instead of numbing. I was numb for so long. And it took one person telling me I was seen to change so much in my life. But also, your nervous system begins to unlearn what doesn't serve you and relearn what is safe, what it really looks like. And your body stops performing. You stop performing strength and you start embodying it. There is such a difference in all of that. Vulnerability is a gift. And this is where Build You, my practice, is so connected with vulnerability. And how I look at it is you were created in protection. You were created to build these walls. But now you're building in truth. You're building in vulnerability. Vulnerability is not about reopening wounds recklessly. It's about choosing where. It's choosing when. It's choosing who deserves access to you. When you talk about Build You, you are choosing 100% of this. Choose where you go now, who you are. It is all on you. Yeah, this world is chaotic. This world is harsh. This world is not a very nice place a lot of the times. We're all living it, but you get to choose who you are in it and what you do with your story. Because you don't owe your story to everyone, but you owe it to yourself to be honest about it. A few ways to tell that you're becoming emotional vulnerable is you speak up sooner when something makes you uncomfortable. You're emotional without shame. Ask for support. You let people see uncertainty without self. Let me challenge you with a few things. Let me ask you, where are you still holding on emotionally? Where are you still hiding emotionally? Who do you feel safest telling the truth to? Who can look at the skeletons in your closet? Do you have anybody? Have you even looked yourself? What would change in your life if you stopped performing strength and you started embodying it? What's one honest emotion you've been avoiding for far too long? You don't heal by staying protected. You heal by learning when it's safe to open up. You are the one who owns your emotions and your safety. If you want to learn ways of being able to feel safe again, to own that and to work through things, you can look at my website, buildyou.us, book a clarity call with me. I'm happy to talk to you and figure out a plan with you. I also have the book on Amazon, Build You After Trauma. That's a great way to start as well. But don't forget to like, subscribe, share this with someone who may need to hear it, because we're all on our own journeys. But thank you for unzipping with me today, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one.